So today's agenda, as mentioned, we have an exciting program for you today. To start, our director, Lindy, will review both our sustainability and global development practice programs, including respective program overviews, benefits, and curriculum. Next, we will journey through our two programs' curricula. We'll start off discussing our Earn Your Way in courses, discuss several stackable certificates, explore capstone and theses, and conclude with our alumni community. Throughout this portion, you will hear from current and former students. And we will end the presentation with a live Q&A session with Lindy and our student panelists. I will now introduce Lindy, our Director of Sustainability and Global Development Practice graduate programs.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jacqueline. I appreciate the introduction. And if you go to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and then this wonderful program that I have the privilege of managing. I'm Lindy van Moetius, as Jacqueline said. I am one of the first people to graduate from I am the first person to graduate from the sustainability program here at the Harvard Extension School. I graduated in 2005, back when it was called the Environmental Management Program, and it has grown tremendously by leaps and bounds. And it was a program that really helped me to figure out what I wanted to do with my environmental career path, a path that's taken me, I think a couple of the animations here might be a little off, but it's a path that's taken me to working on Capitol Hill on parks and park equity legislation. It's taken me to working in Egypt on environmental justice issues and with the World Bank. It's taken me to working for the German government, the Ministry of Economics and Climate Action, as well as management roles in a couple of United States environmental nonprofits, where I had the privilege to work on a variety of projects and manage the advocacy and activism parts of the organizations to some extent. So this degree really helped me to crystallize my career path. I graduated from the Harvard Extension School and then went on to law school and practiced as a lawyer for a couple of years before working in government and nonprofits. And I hope that as you hear about today's program, it will inspire you to think about what this program could do for your career journey as well. Most of our students, next slide, please, Jacqueline. Most of our students who take E101 are students that I encourage to think about what's at the center of their climate Venn diagram. And that's a concept that was created by Harvard alumna, Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. She's a leading oceans researcher and writer, and also host of a podcast on how to change the planet. And I encourage students to think about, what are you good at? What do you like doing? What brings you joy? And what is the work that needs doing out there? And for every student, that answer is a little bit different. And today you'll hear from different students in our program and alumni about what their answer is and how this program has helped them find what's at the center of their sustainability, global development, or climate action Venn diagram. So I'm really excited to tell you a little bit more about this program. So one of the real benefits of being part of the Harvard Extension Schools program is that we really let you customize the curriculum. You're going to hear about that throughout this presentation. Students have made different choices on what courses to take, and their decisions have evolved. So they started out perhaps wanting to work in corporate sustainability and realized that after a couple of courses, they really wanted to work in green buildings, or they really wanted to work in urban sustainability. And so part of the magic of our program is that you can customize your journey. You can take the courses that you're interested in, and you can explore a little bit. So our program is structured in that we have a couple of core courses that you have to take, but we generally let students explore from a range of electives. We also have a wonderful faculty. So in this program, about 43% of the faculty are Harvard instructors, generally tenured Harvard faculty who teach courses like The Politics of Climate Change with Dustin Tingley, the head of the Harvard Climate Education Committee and a member of the government department at Harvard. We also have a faculty filled with industry experts. So you can take a course on global development from Timu Alexander Pudio, who's a senior expert at the Office of the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. You can also take your capstone course from Neil Hawkins. Neil was the Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer at Dow Chemical for almost 2 decades. And so he brings a wealth of experience on how corporate sustainability actually works in practice. So we try to give you access to globally recognized expert faculty so that you can learn practical hands-on experience and ways to implement sustainability and global development skills from them. We also really try to provide opportunities where you can practice the skills you're learning in the classroom. And I know that the students who are joining me today will share a lot more about that as well. Lastly, I think there are 2 major community benefits to being part of this program. The first is that you're really part of a global community. So as you saw today, people are joining us from all over the world. Our current student body is incredibly diverse. We have someone from every continent except Antarctica taking courses this semester. And we have all age ranges from 18 to people in their early 70s. We have an incredibly diverse range of career paths represented in the students in our program, and you get to be part of that global community and learn as much from them as you do from your instructors. Finally, you get to be part of the Harvard student community. And one of the things I always encourage students to do is to come on campus and go get their Harvard ID card. Many of them don't think they can do that, but you can do that when you just even take one class with the Harvard Extension School. And that gives you access to one of the world's leading libraries. It gives you access to all the great campus events. It gives you access to a yoga class. So you can be a Harvard student as a Harvard Extension School student. And I encourage you, in fact, to lean into that benefit and go and explore some of those great lectures and events that other student groups, as well as our extension student groups, present throughout the year, because you'll learn and you'll meet some wonderful people. And lastly, then become part of a really strong alumni network. Just this past weekend, I went to a board meeting in Tennessee, and one of the women there said, "Oh, I got my ALM at the Extension School." And now she runs a large charitable foundation in land protection. So you're part of a wonderful alumni network that will pay dividends, I think, for many years after you graduate. Next slide, please. Lastly, I just want to mention one very exciting benefit and development. Just a few months ago, last year, Harvard University launched the Salata Institute for Climate and Sustainability. And as that institute gains traction and starts doing more, and you can read about it in the Harvard Gazette and online as well, we get to really benefit from an affiliation with them. And so in a couple of weeks, we'll launch the first Harvard Climate Action Week, and the Extension School is contributing 2 events to that. So we're very excited that we are part of this network of all kinds of organizations at Harvard, all focused on addressing the climate crisis and increasing sustainability. So it's a wonderful benefit as you become a student here. Next slide, please. So as the largest sustainability program at Harvard University, our programs, both of them together, the Global Development Practice Program and the Sustainability Program, but really the Sustainability Program boasts a terrific number of courses. There are 63 courses that focus on climate change and sustainability, taught by 74 instructors. And last year, 2,683 students took those courses. So it's a large program with a lot of diversity, both in terms of the students we attract and the courses that we offer. In the sustainability program, the average age of a student is 36. Most of our students work full-time and they take 1 class a semester. And we are very fortunate that over the years, almost all of them would recommend to other students that, that they enroll in this program as well. Next slide, please. I just want to share a couple of highlights. The sustainability program is really focused around learning systems thinking and solutions. It's an incredibly practical program, and in almost every single class, you are working on a project that has a practical application. You're doing that by building core research skills, quantitative methods, and enhancing your communication skills. And you're engaging in work across a range of industries, from a soil health class all the way to our ecology and oceans management class, and to policy classes where you actually get to work with lobbyists and lawyers who are making environmental policy. We also put a lot of focus on stakeholder engagement and in the field research projects that we let students do in their own communities as well as in the Boston area, because we really believe that the best way to learn is by doing. Next slide, please. And the program requires you to take 12 courses total. 11 of those can be online. And one of those has to be on campus. And often students will elect to have their on-campus course be their thesis or capstone course. So it's their last course before they graduate. Next slide, please. The required courses in the program are the 2 Earn Your Way In courses, which you'll hear more about in just a second. 3 sustainability skill set courses, 3 sustainability electives, as well as a research methods course. And then you have to choose either between a capstone track or a thesis track. So depending on what your research interest actually is, you can make the choice what kind of project you want to finish with before you graduate. Next slide, please. And then we can switch to the next slide as well. So as we think about the Global Development Practice Program, it has a very similar structure and student composition. The students are slightly younger in the GDP program. They're slightly more international. Only about 60% of them work full-time. Many of them are full-time students. And they take around 2 courses a semester. So it's a slightly more international, younger, and more diverse crowd in terms of their career journeys. Next slide, please. And here are some photos of 2 partners that our students have worked with, one in Uganda and one in Montana. And I share these photos with you because that program is really even more geared towards practical applications of sustainable development than even our sustainability program. So we structure our curriculum to be in alignment with the Global Masters in Global Development Practice Association. And so we try to make sure that the curriculum covers 4 essential areas: health sciences, social sciences, management sciences, and natural sciences. So we structure the curriculum so that you get experience in a full range of courses and disciplines, and are then able to really think about global development as a system of making change in the world. You also get to learn with this global network of development professionals and be part of that global association as a student in the program. Next slide, please. Similarly to our sustainability program, there are 11 required courses and 1 on-campus capstone course. And you'll see here what I was talking about, the breakdown between the sort of 4 main areas of global development, as well as the 2 required Earn Your Way In courses. So I want to do less talking now, and I want to start pivoting to hearing from our students. So next slide, the last thing I will share with you all is a little bit about the Earn Your Way In courses for admission. I teach one of them. I teach ENVR 101, which is the pro seminar. It has evolved over the last couple of semesters to really be focused on teaching students research and writing skills that will carry them and prepare them for all of their other classes in the program, as well as their thesis or capstone course. It's a pretty fun course, if I don't say so myself. And I wanted to share a couple of slides with you to give you sort of a sneak preview of what you would learn if you took E101. So next slide, please. So you'll see here one of the weeks we talk about managing common pool resources. And we look at Elinor Ostrom, Nobel Prize winning economist, who really broke down the concept of the tragedy of the commons and gave economists a way to model how common pool resources can actually be managed properly. And she's done research all around the world, proving this concept. Next slide, please. and identified 8 principles for managing these commons. And so in E101, we talk about these 8 principles as applied to fishing resources and fisheries in Mexico. And I take the students through an actual example where I used to do work with the Environmental Defense Fund on these fisheries. And we talk about what are these strategies and how do they actually work in practice. Next slide, please. And then we look at whether those are successful today, whether those strategies are still working or whether they need to be shifted into a different management scheme. So it's a really interesting and fun way for us to think about a very theoretical concept and take it into a real practical example. But don't take my word for it. I'd love for you to hear from Adam Peer, who is not only one of the students who took E101 and did very well, but he is now the head TA for E101 and a great ally to the students who take that class, having both experienced it as a student himself and now being further into the program. So Adam, I invite you to share a little bit about your experience with those Earn Your Way In courses.
Yeah, thanks, Professor. So last month, I appeared on a legislative panel that was considering legislation that my association opposed. And that hearing carried on for nearly 4 hours before I was called up. And needless to say, emotions were running very, very high. Some committee members were engaged in heated exchanges with witnesses. And no joke, there was more than one person crying in the hallway. And as I got called up, I could feel my heart pounding. But as I turned to speak, inside that tension melted away. I knew my stuff. I established my facts, backed up by sources. And when the questions came, I was confident in what I was saying, and I knew the limits of my expertise. And that confidence was built on this program. The research skills that I developed in the pro seminar, E101, I learned how to craft and write arguments that are supported by research. And E210, the other entry class, really taught me how to create a precise research question and testable hypothesis. And both of these skills really came together in Professor Norris's life cycle assessments class, where we learn how to measure the environmental impact of products, services, and other different changes. And all of this helped me speak with confidence when I was before those legislators and even got a few heated questions thrown my way. But one of the things I really learned the most from was from being Professor Bonmutius's head teaching fellow, because that's where I got to interact, meet, and coach other students who are on this journey just like me, and also join a community that's smart, driven, successful, and most of all, supportive. And that's been a great joy in my life and professionally, because I get to interact with folks like you, because in many respects, you're an expert in your own right, and students that join this program already bring a passion for the environment with them. What this program does is it gives you the knowledge, skills, and frameworks to be able to amplify your voice and help you make a contribution to sustainability. And no doubt we have huge challenges. They're very, very daunting, and at times they can be a little depressing as well too. But there's one last thing that this program gives you as we all face this existential crisis together, is it gives you hope and joy. But it's not a false hope. It's not false joy or false confidence, but it's a hope, joy, and confidence that you can make a difference. You can make a change no matter where you stand. So I know all of you are facing a big decision and a big commitment of whether or not to move forward with this graduate program. But I will share with you that if you do decide to join, we're here to support you. And more importantly, we're here to cheer you on all the way. So thanks for letting me share a little bit about my story with you here today. Professor?
Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate it. You couldn't actually be a better ambassador for E101 if we tried to find one. Next, I'd like to introduce one of our students who is closer to the end of his journey in the program. And I would love for him to share a little bit about the certificates and the journey that he's taken through our program. As you just saw on the previous slide, we have a number of stackable certificates. And what that really means is that you can take those 4 courses within a certificate and then count them towards your overall ALM degree. Some students will just come and do a certificate, and that's totally great. Some students will start knowing that they want to get a master's at some point, and they start with the Earn Your Way In courses and then take the certificate courses along their academic journey. Some students start with a couple of certificate courses, and then they say, gee, I've already taken 4 courses. Why not finish the last 8? So there's no correct way to move through this program. And we offer you that flexibility in these stackable certificates so that you can really explore the right journey for you. So Dinesh, would you please share a little bit about your journey, especially with the corporate sustainability certificate?
Sure. Thanks, Lindy. In fact, I'm one of those that, hey, started a few courses and then, you know what? I want to get into the program. So, hi, everyone. My name is Dinesh. I actually started, as Lindy said, really wanted to understand the definition of sustainability. I hear people talking about it, especially in my industry, transportation. And I asked around and there's no an answer to it. So I thought, you know what? Let's take some courses. And I found Harvard Extension has some really good courses around this. So I started with a few courses and I kind of fell in love and decided that, time passed by, I applied and got into the ALM degree in sustainability. I really enjoyed many of the courses because it's allowed me to actually create my own path and the things I want to learn. A couple of courses I particularly like about it was the Design Renewable Energy, E102, and the E116, which is the Carbon Economy courses. Those 2 courses allowed me to actually have a very deep understanding on the impact of emissions on human health, economics, and other things. So coming from the transportation industry, I utilized those skills and knowledge from these courses and started developing solutions for the industry. Indeed, now people come to me and ask me questions, expecting that I'm an expert in this industry. I also took my skills and won the nationwide Porsche Data Cup last year by developing a sustainable driving application. So again, you can see that these are practical skills and knowledge that not only you learn about from classes, but you can apply them to whatever work you want to do. My startup was also selected into the Harvard Climate Circle as a startup with a high potential in solving climate change. My current passion right now is to share the knowledge I gained from this program and inspire individuals and organizations to join me in making an impact. And I feel like after this program, I have the right skills and knowledge to start sharing with others and bring people along to the journey. So thank you very much. I hope you will enjoy whatever way you start the program, and I'm sure you have fun with meeting a lot of people.
Thanks, Dinesh. Michelle, would you care to share a little bit about your experience in the Global Development Practice Program?
Of course, Lindy. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I'm on my last year of my degrees, finishing my master's in global development practice. And as you can see, I have earned my environmental policy and international development graduate certificate. So for context, I'm also located in Canada. So I work at one of the university here on sustainability, leadership, indigenous programming, and student development program. And I've also been personally very involved with youth sustainability action and policy with United Nations Association Canada and other NGOs in Canada and around the world. So for me, taking lots of these courses toward my GDPA degree, as well as this certificate, provided me with that specific skills I really needed in my everyday job. And it also improved my representation in the larger global scale. So last month, I was actually in the United Nations headquarters in New York to attend 67th Commission of Status Women. And there was a lot of sessions, negotiations, discussions pertaining to education, equality, and environment. And I felt like, oh, this is the moment where all my courses came together and then it's all taking into an effect. I have drafted numerous policies on women, health, and environment through my global class courses. And I learned about the challenges that we are facing and how the change making itself is not a straight up journey. It is a squiggle from my sustainability leadership course with Leith. And I also taken course around technologies on climate resilience that allowed me to have this specific scientific knowledge and background. So all of this together provided me with that broader understanding and also that intersectionality piece of sustainability. So in addition to this educational benefit, actually one of the things that I also want to highlight and my favorite part of sustainability in this program is our community. So this year, we have officially been approved as Global Development Student Society, as we are newer in the program. And we have really strong community as well as wealth of knowledge amongst the students themselves. Everyone comes up with different educational background. Some people come from like energy, some comes from working on the refugee sector, others coming from international relations. So there's vast amount of skills and knowledge. But at the same time, for me, what is really special is how we care about each other and we stay true to each other within our student society. So even though many of us are from literally all over the world, we spend a lot of time together virtually connecting through our WhatsApp group, our coffee chat, and more events, and also sharing opportunities and networking, because we see many of us are starting our journey together and we are at different paths of the journey. So we are really good support for each other. So for me, I think the best benefit is, yes, the program itself providing me the direct knowledge, but not only that, and I'm not only coming out with knowledge and skills and educational pieces, but also the lifelong community and people as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. I can also share that Michelle recently helped to found the GDP Student Club and has done an amazing job leading that student community. So thank you for sharing your perspective with us today. I'd like to introduce Christina Chaminade now, who is joining us, I believe, from Europe. Christina, would you share a little bit about what drew you to the Natural Resource Management and Sustainable Ecosystems certificate?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina, and I'm currently almost 1 year into my certificate in natural resource management. I am a professor in economics at Lund University in Sweden, but I'm currently living in Costa Rica. I enrolled the Natural Resource Certificate because I really wanted to learn about ecology and conservation. And I wanted to support a career change from economics to conservation, but also from academia to practice. And I spent almost 1 year looking at different postgraduate studies in fields related to conservation worldwide. And I finally took this one at Harvard Extension School because it's one of the few, if not the only, that I found that is online. It is focused on conservation and ecology, which is what I was really after. It is really open to students with no prior natural science background, and that is very unique for a program in natural resource management. It is very flexible and targeted to working professionals. And of course, it is one of the best universities in the world. And what I really love about the program is the passion and commitment from the teachers and teaching assistants, the interaction with colleague students. I mean, we have professionals coming from literally all over the world, as it has been mentioned before, and the opportunity to learn new things. We learn new things on a daily basis on each of the classes. And I have taken 3 courses, either 2 Essentials of Ecology, Wetland Science and Policy, and I'm going to join land conservation practice in the fall. It is a lot of work, but from my perspective, it's totally, totally worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. It's wonderful to hear you talk with such joy about the ecology classes, because those are some of my favorites when I was a student. We also offer a Sustainable Cities and Communities graduate certificate, where you'll build the knowledge and skills necessary to help cities and communities design, develop, and maintain more sustainable systems, infrastructure, and communities. Peter, I would love if you could explain a little bit more about this certificate and your work and your journey through this program.
Sure. So, hello, everyone. My name is Peter Backus. I'm currently about 1.5 years into my day job, as I like to call it. I spend my jobs in the construction industry, where my firm and my government entity that I'm working for, we define a small project as only being $25 million. More common than not, they're multi-billion-dollar, large-scale infrastructure projects in and around the New York City area. And so in my day-to-day aspects, anything that we do, anything at our construction sites are surrounded by buildings, peoples, and communities that are directly impacted one way or the other by what happens at the facilities that my construction firm, as well as the governmental agency, oversees. Since my entity has been engaging and committed in clean construction practices, it became necessary for me to truly understand all aspects of sustainable cities beyond that in which I've already been engaging with on construction sites. So this is really where the Sustainable Cities and Communities graduate certificate really stood out. I was still able to complete courses for my degree, but I was also able to quickly identify and focus on taking courses that would immediately impact what I was doing in my day-to-day job. I think a great example of this is the Design of Renewable Energy Projects course that I took, where my final project was on designing a renewable energy project that was effectively waste to energy for a large-scale international airport in New York. I was able to take what I learned in that class and doing that final project, and quite literally the next day bring it over to my daytime job and start applying those processes and those items to my work to start driving additional change in the field of construction. In addition to this, all of the work from the certificate has allowed me to really move up in my field for growth, both professionally and analyzing data, and academically, as folks in the construction industry across the nation are recognizing me as having one of the few people who knows this stuff from the data side at work, as well as now academically getting supported by all the knowledge from Harvard Extension School, and specifically the Sustainable Cities and Community Certificate. So yeah, that's about it. It's great. It was a great certificate. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Peter. And you've done such impressive things with your work. You're just such a delight and a credit to our program. Next and last but not least, we have our Sustainable Food Systems Graduate Certificate. And in this certificate, we prepare you to address the present and future challenges of food sustainability and food justice. Before diving into our capstone and theses, Tom, would you tell us a little bit about your experience and how it has helped you shape what you do with your work as well?
Hi, Lindy. Sure. And thank you so much for having me here today. My name's Tom. I'm currently finishing the final course before starting my master's thesis in sustainability. And I chose to stack 2 certificates as part of this process, as Lindy mentioned previously, which include the Sustainable Food Systems Certificate, which they asked me to speak about a bit today. So for the Sustainable Food Systems Certificate, the 3 favorite courses are up on the screen there. First is Regenerative Economics. I am actually in the inaugural cohort of this class with Dr. Manuel Makeda, and I chose it because I actually loved his first class so much, Circular Economy, and it counted towards my second stack certificate in corporate sustainability. And currently this course connects the circular economy and design thinking frameworks to soil-specific regenerative economy. And most specifically, the final group project on which I'm working involves feeding local communities in Puerto Rico through regenerative farm practices, which is directly applicable to the thesis that I'm drafting. The second course that I chose to speak about is Evaluating Sustainable Food Systems and Other Enterprises in Rural Areas by Dr. Mark Layton, who you'll see a lot of if you choose the sustainability route. And perhaps the most relevant course of my thesis proposal, this one taught me how to examine small rural farming enterprises as a business and encourage very thoughtful calculation and detailed record keeping to manage costs and promote better management decisions on my farm and on others. In the form of scenario modeling, the final project for this course formed really the basis for what will become my Farmers First economic model evaluation methodology for my thesis proposal. The third is the Water Resource Policy and Watershed Management with Dr. Scott Horsley. This was an incredible course, and he's a real-world practitioner who's actually up in New York right now working a lot of their problems with rising sea levels. And the project, the final project for this course was a full watershed analysis for my coffee farm. It allowed me to analyze wastewater management, aquifer recharge rates, water flows, and it was really just an incredible real-time experience. So for me, you know, while exploring the certificate in pursuit of the ALM, I was able to implement very live on-farm changes that showed me how to transition a traditionally farmed land to regenerative and feed the community, which led me to my final topic here today, which is I'll be up at Cambridge this summer with Dr. Layton and 21 other colleagues preparing my thesis proposal. And the working title presently is The Farmer's First Economic Model for Coffee, which is a mouthful, I know. And it endeavors to answer the subtitle, Could a New Economic Model for Small-Scale Coffee Farms in Puerto Rico Scale to Feed the World and Secure Arabica Coffee Against Climate Change? So in summary, I've really very much enjoyed many of the benefits the certificate program has offered, as Lindy mentioned, like customized curriculum of 63 courses, the faculty of 73 experts. But for me personally, the most amazing part of the certificate and master's program was the practical hands-on experience. I've been really lucky enough to study with world-class professors and alongside peers who are real-time practitioners in their field today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tom. And you've provided us the perfect segue to talk a little bit about capstones and theses. So I want to talk a little bit first about the Global Development Practice capstone because it's fairly new. That program is only about 3 years old, but we've had such a tremendously diverse range of projects that I wanted to share a couple of those with you today. Some recent examples include working in Ghana's prison system, developing an action plan for UNICEF Philippines, socially responsible investing strategies for Northwestern Mutual, and a host of other projects where students have been able to go and make change in organizations through their final capstone work. And one of our students, recent alumna who completed one of the first Global Development Practice capstones ever, is with us here today. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Hamiza Hamma, who was recently featured in the Harvard Gazette for her capstone project, Developing Roads in Nigeria. Hadiza, can you tell us a little bit more about your capstone?
Hey, thank you for the introduction, Lindy. Yeah, hello, everyone. It's good to be here. My name is Hadiza Hamma. I'm an associate professor of law at the University of Abuja in Nigeria. And well, when I'm not doing academics, I'm also, practicing law. I'm a senior associate in the law firm in Abuja, Nigeria also. So as an academic, my research interest revolves around environmental law, human rights law, international development law and policy, and of course, sustainable development. So before I came to Harvard Extension School to do the GDP program, I already had, like 3 law degrees, a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD. But I was looking for something beyond law, beyond regulation, beyond rules, to explain what I was teaching then, which was environmental law and policy. And so, and when I discovered the program at the Extension School, I signed up for a few courses, and like everyone else said earlier, I fell in love, and I couldn't stop. So I just wanted to do 1 or 2 courses, but I ended up doing the entire program. So I graduated in 2019, November 2019, and became the first graduate of the program, the GDP program at Harvard Extension School. So I did a capstone project, at the end of my program. And the capstone is titled Community Development Project Plan for Aflac Plastics Limited. Aflac Plastics is a private company in Nigeria, in Kaduna State, located in a community, the Afaka community. It's a low-income community facing a lot of infrastructural challenges, no water, poor roads, electricity problem, and the rest of it. And so I had to go in between the management of the company, that's Aflac Plastics, and the Afaka community leaders. And then I came up with an idea and tabled it before the company that, that they can build a road for the community. as part of their corporate social responsibility. And at the end of the day, the company realized that, building the road is also in its own interest, because they were experiencing a lot of, difficulties moving their vehicles around, having customers come visit them, to patronize their goods and the rest of them. So that was what the project was about, developing a plan, as a pro bono consultant for the road. And I did that, presented the plan before the company. Everybody was happy, the community was happy. And there was a lot of plans on the way to start building the road by the time I was done with the project. And so what I want to say is that my experience doing the capstone project, is such a rewarding one. I still, enjoy the benefits I have gained from doing the capstone project. First of all, I was able to gain, hands-on experience in project management and consulting that I didn't have before. I was always a classroom person. And then I was also able to put into practice all that I have learned in class, so it was not like all the abstract things I've learned in class, but also how they apply to real world situations. And I was also able to, expand my network, to network, to communicate with a lot of people. And I've maintained, I gained new friends, new connections that I still, keep in touch with till today. And we enjoy mutual benefits in our relationships. And I also, now have learned how to apply some form of experiential learning to my law teaching that I didn't used to do before. I've learned that, in the course of the program. And then I also want to say about the courses, and the capstone, they are mutually reinforcing, because at the end of the day, what you learn in the classroom helps you to come out to frame what you will do in the capstone, and then the capstone helps you to practicalize what you have learned in class. So there's this symbiosis relationship between the courses and the capstone. So I can say, for example, some of the courses that I found practical experience in my capstone, like foundations of sustainable development, project management, political economy of globalization, and the rest of them. So, since after my graduation, life has never been the same. I have moved on to new things. I'm still, of course, in pursuing my academic career, but in a different way now. So, for example, I have launched new areas of research, around sustainable development and sustainable development practice. I have even introduced a new course that was never there in my university, the International Development Law and Policy, concentrating on, the human face of international development. So it's not just about economic development, but about the right to social, political, economic development, and of course, the issues about sustainable development being sustainable, for present and future generations. So I also do other things since after my graduation, like I've turned my teaching from just classroom teaching to teaching to education for sustainable development, where I engage with other like-minded individuals to create a community of students from across various universities in Nigeria, and we call them sustainability ambassadors. We organize conferences, practical trainings for them on sustainability and education for sustainable development. So all I'm trying to say in all is that if you choose to embark on it, to start this program, it will never be the same. There will always be a life before the program and a life after the program. And so I encourage you to go for it, and I'm going to help you with it. All right. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't talk too much.
Thanks, Hadiza. No, that was great. Good overview, especially since you were the first graduate. I am going to speed us up a little bit just so that we have room for questions. And so you'll see here in the sustainability capstone track, you have two choices, both the consulting version of a capstone, like what Hadiza just described, and an independent research capstone where you do research on your own. Next slide. And available just for sustainability students is a thesis option as well. So you'll see two examples here of some theses. You just heard from Tom about his thesis proposal. And I'd like to introduce Tony Kozlinski, a student who is currently finishing up his sustainability journey and writing a thesis to share a little bit about his thesis. And then Dinesh, perhaps you can add a few words to sort of share a little more about yours. And if you want to hear more about our theses, there's a link at the bottom of this slide where you can check out a webinar where we have 4 alumni. So a total of 12 alumni, 4 from each track, talking about their work and their projects. So it'll give you a better sense of what's available to you. Tony, can you share a little bit more?
Sure. Thanks, Lindy. And I'll be very brief. I just wanted to say, I'm just starting the thesis process. I thought I was going down the capstone process. I love this program because of the flexibility. I came to understand in talking to other students and professors what a rare opportunity it is to be able to do a thesis here at Harvard and have that become part of the Harvard academic record that will be there forever. And I thought, this is my one chance to do it. I'm going to take that opportunity. And if that's a little daunting for you, don't let it be, because HES has set it up for you to succeed by their process. And they put certain things in place and they kind of walk you through piece by piece so that you can really dig in and study and explore something that's really meaningful to you based on the classes you've taken. So I just want to encourage you for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. And if I may also just ask you to share just a couple seconds on your experience with the iLab, because that is such a unique experience that you and Dinesh share.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, the iLab is a place where all of Harvard students can come together. It's an outgrowth of the Harvard Business School, where you learn the techniques, you learn the theories that Harvard Business School has developed, but it's available to all students across the university, where you can take a project or an idea or a venture and you can develop that. And I'm doing that in the iLab with a final project I took from one of my courses, and I'm applying in real time the learnings from all my courses to develop this venture. The venture has now become a company. The company is actually creating a technology. That technology is going to make a impact in my own community where I work and live. And all of that comes from my class. It's all this holistic thing where you learn in the class, you develop it in the iLab alongside the other Harvard University students, and it becomes a reality. And you don't wait for your degree to do that. You don't wait for graduation. You do it in real time. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Dinesh, do you also want to just say a couple sentences about your experience? Because I know the iLab was pretty transformative for you.
Yeah, no, I just want to add on the thesis side, very straightforward, as Tony said, right? Don't be worried, don't be intimidated. It's my first time doing a thesis. You have a lot of support. And now I'm at the end. They told me that it will be published on the Harvard website, and I'm getting people interested in knowing what I did. So definitely a great experience. On the iLab, as Tony said, even for me, I have done startups in the past. Joining the iLab, the support they provide, the network is completely different. So I highly encourage anyone who comes to the program, who has just an idea or whatever, try getting into it, and you will, it's really part of the Harvard community, Harvard resources that you have been mentioning. I think that's the great one.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. As you'll see, browsing more and you'll hear more in the Q&A, our community is really diverse, and also gives you access to all sorts of great opportunities. And I'd like to shift to just sharing with you one more picture of commencement. Because as a graduate of the ALM program, you are going to be part of Harvard's commencement, walking into Harvard Yard with all of the other schools and all of the other graduates. And it's a wonderful moment where you can really celebrate all that you've accomplished as a Harvard Extension School student. And speaking of graduation, I'd like to invite Kate, one of our most recent alumna, to share just a little bit about what her life has been like as an alumna of the program. She's an alumna of the Global Development Practice Program, and she's been able to stay in touch and really be engaged in the community. So Kate, could you just share a couple of closing thoughts with us on what it's like for you? And then we'll move into Q&A.
Sure, I'll try to keep it short, everyone. Everyone here knows I have a gift of gab, but I see the time. But just in general, if you're teetering on whether or not to dive into this program, do it, dive in. As Hadiza had mentioned earlier, often a lot of us classmates, we joke around once we're in it saying, you know, there was life before Harvard Extension School in these degree programs, and then there's life, this glorious life really, once you dive in and afterwards. And just to share as an alum, I continue to keep in touch with classmates through work partnerships, friendships, WhatsApp chats, student club activities like that of the Global Development Practice Student Society that Michelle mentioned, and extension school webinars and events. The Alumni Association has even more clubs and special interest groups to get involved in that reach across the entirety of the Harvard Alumni Network and also across the globe that I'm very excited to join for continued camaraderie. But also as an alum, I have Harvard Club of New York membership, which I actually set up in time for a conference last month in the city. And this membership provided for a group of us, executive directors, a senior policy advisor, and program managers with a uniquely intimate and casual setting over dinner for important knowledge sharing about underinvested in frontline communities, more specifically Indigenous communities, that would not have been possible on the conference floor. So the team at Harvard Club were phenomenal. They were so helpful, and I'll most certainly return for future conference meetings and visits to the city to meet up with classmates and colleagues. This space is an absolute asset, just one of the very many benefits you get to receive once you're an alum of this program. And I'm just so very grateful to have access to this space as a very proud Harvard Extension School alumni and continued community member.
Thank you, Kate. And we are always so grateful when you join us. Kate is one of our most enthusiastic alumna. So with that, we have finished our presentations, and we'd love to hear some questions from you all. I know we've been answering a lot of them in the chat, but we'd love to hear some of your questions before we close this webinar.
Thank you, Lindy. So I know we're running a little bit over time, so we're going to do the Q&A from now until 1:05 if anyone's able to stay, of our attendees here today. And just as a side note, that this will all be recorded to you in an email. So if you aren't able to stay past 1, we thank you for staying with us through all of our impassioned stories of these two programs. You'll be able to view this Q&A in the recording. But to jump off, the first question is for you, Lindy. What does the average journey through these two programs look like?
Let me go off mute. Well, there is no such thing as the average journey. That's really kind of the unsatisfying answer I'm going to give you. As you've just heard, and as you will hear, no doubt, from many other students, is everybody kind of has their own journey. Whether they start with the, earn your way in courses because they know they want to do the master's program right off the bat, or they take a couple courses and get there after earning a certificate. There really is no one right journey. And to answer a question that I saw in the Q&A, we do have advising for students along the way. As soon as you're admitted to the degree program, you actually get a dedicated academic advisor. But even before you're admitted, you can reach out to the staff at the Extension School for advising. I also host weekly open office hours where students who are interested in the program can come and just chat a little bit about their pathway and their interests, and we can talk through some of the classes. So we try to give you as much as advice as we can, but the best advice generally comes from your fellow students.
Awesome. And so speaking of our fellow students, how do you balance work and family commitments or extracurricular commitments with your coursework and community activities? And someone asked in the chat earlier, what is the typical number of hours per week you spend on these courses? And I'll ask this first to Adam and I think Peter, who have to leave us shortly, if you want to quickly answer this.
Yeah, so the few bits of advice I have, don't take more than one class at a time, and definitely don't take both admission classes at the same time. I have never heard of anybody trying to do both and being successful, just because they do require a lot of work, and because you're here because you want to learn and not just go through a process and get a degree at the end. So when you are taking one class at a time, I would say be very, very organized, put everything in a calendar, know exactly what's required and what to do, and to communicate very, very closely with your teaching assistants and your professors. And it is something that is completely doable and manageable, having family, career, and everything else that life throws at you.
Yeah, just to go off of what Adam said, I am one of the examples of a student who took both admission classes at the same time and I did do well. That being said, it was a lot of work. So definitely know your limits before you decide to do that. Otherwise, like Adam said, you could find yourself having a fun time. But yes, just like Lindy said, I'm a glutton for punishment. I will fully admit it. You can do it. It is a lot of work. And everything Adam said is completely accurate. You need to budget your time very strictly almost, but you can do it.
Awesome. And does anyone else want to quickly speak to this question before we move on to the next one?
I could, Jacqueline. I think that there is also a learning curve. I mean, the first course that you take, you devote many more hours because, I mean, everything is new and you need to get to really get organized, really how many hours or days do you devote to Harvard and how many do you devote to other things? But then it goes really fast. I mean, once that you get really the routines in order, then it really can work very, very well to work full time and at the same time take Harvard courses.
And if I can just add one point to what everybody said, I think it's really important. I think 50% of what happens here happens in the classroom, and the other 50% happens outside of the classroom. And I think everybody's kind of talked about that. Community. You dive in here, take your one class, but then get enriched by all the things that are happening in this community. And it's an amazing community. So many other schools can offer classes and degrees and information online, but only Harvard creates this community where we all really come together. And so take your time and enjoy it. You have one chance in your life to go through this process, make the most of it. It's really amazing what can happen.
Yeah, that's all really great advice. And I would also say it depends on the class. You know, some classes, the class and the time of the semester, some classes have a lot of work due at the end of the semester. Some have a lot of work due in the middle. Some are consistently, 4 hours a week of work. So it really depends on the class. And I would always encourage students to really read the syllabus carefully when you register, because that'll give you a good sense of what's expected of you and how much work you can expect. So yeah, that's a great question. What about another question, Jacqueline? I think we have 4 more minutes.
Yeah, so another question for our students, and I'll call on some of you who haven't spoken yet, is along the same lines of this community. So most of our courses, you have the option or you take online. And so I was wondering how you're able to maintain community both academically and build community personally from, different parts of the world and utilizing distance learning. If anyone would like to speak to that, maybe someone who hasn't shared yet. Dinesh.
Yeah, I can share. Well, many of the courses has their own group, so we chat on group, but at the same time, there's study group. Tony and I think we became very good friends. Started with a study group and in 210, and then we meet every week with other study members and say, hey, this is a challenging problem, so how do we approach it? And then we built along, and then we were like, hey, next semester, which course you are taking? And then we were like, hey, this is the course, and then we start sharing. And then some of us might go into different directions. Some of us might continue to take our courses together. Whether we do our projects together, we stay in touch. So is a community that is very supportive, very sharing. Well, some teachers might not want to know. We share the good side and not the interesting side. But having said that, it's a very diverse but very supportive community. I love it. I think that's one of the parts that really got me excited about it.
Yeah, I would also like to add that aside from academic setting, which I think a lot of our courses, even though it's virtual, incorporate a lot of like group discussion and then like where you get to meet that community in pieces. But we also have our student community and student group as well. Like I briefly mentioned it, but we do have GDP group before formal society. Even before that, I know Kate and Hadiza has started a lot really neat type group and community. So we do chat a lot in WhatsApp group. We do host our casual coffee chat. And I tell you, there's so many times I see like, oh, are you working on that area? I'm looking for someone who's working on that area. And all of a sudden someone gets a job. There's a lot of community and network that is interconnected, that people get to connect academically, professionally, and also as a friend. Like it's just really good place that you can still connect and meet. And you know, because people are everywhere all around the world. Whenever I go to conference and work calls or somewhere else, I put in the chat like, hey, anyone in New York? And then there's somebody always in New York, New Orleans, wherever in Europe, and you get to meet them and you don't have to really have that awkward introduction. You just like, oh, you're real. And then you just kick off right there. So I think that's really great that wherever you go, there's always someone who you might be able to see as well.
Perfect. And then maybe Tom, if you want to speak at all, and Kate, and then we'll wrap it up with our last question. If not, no worries. Kate, did you maybe want to speak on the community aspect as well, especially as an alumna?
Yeah, sure. Just to kind of piggyback on what Michelle has said, it's WhatsApp, right? There are a lot of study groups that come out of the classes and we connect on WhatsApp, also emails. But WhatsApp is fabulous, right? Because you don't have to have your notifications on and it is globally accessible for the most part. So that's how a lot of us connect. But then with some of the student group opportunities that are open to alumni as well, you know, they're good about just getting together. I guess, you know, one thing that we talked about or that I mentioned was this joke, right? That once we start taking a few classes, some of us kind of build this camaraderie around, oh, there was life before this program and then there's life afterwards. Another thing that you'll learn as you start to connect with your classmates, particularly in these programs, global development and sustainability, is some people have imposter syndrome coming into this program because it's Harvard and you're really intimidated, and you join this community and you realize, A, you're not the only one that experienced that. So you're building camaraderie in that point, but also, you know, Lindy and the directors do such a great job with hiring. Your professors are amazing people who have done incredible work around the globe. They're practitioners and academics, and they make themselves accessible. So this program really doesn't have that kind of pretension that I was so worried about. So that's kind of another bonding experience that you have. And so you really just, it's a space of kind of ingrained community that I think is so unique to these two programs. And we just continue to keep in touch. So the clubs, I mean, we have happy hours, right? And we all Zoom in, or we all, you know, I think, yeah, we Zoom in from all over the world at happy hours, no matter what time it is for us locally. So, and that continues to be accessible to you as alumni as well. So I hope that that's helpful for someone that's asking about how you're able to actually connect with each other. There's a lot of great knowledge sharing, learning about different festivities happening all over the world. It's a lot of fun.
In addition to what Kate said, two quick final points from me in terms of meeting people in person. A lot of the professors have been incredibly open to office hours, off office hours, talking through theses proposals, talking through Harvard iLab. As Tony said, you know, I'm also a participant in the iLab, taking these things, you know, into real world context. And for me, that really has been a very large value add for the program, being a practitioner day to day, and the accessibility of this. It's not just, let's talk about it a couple times a week in class and lecture and throw some things at you, and then, you figure it out on your own, which it certainly could be. And there's, there's value in that too. But that hasn't been my experience. It's really been incredibly interactive and engaging, and a huge benefit. The second thing is in terms of meeting colleagues and classmates. I've met tons and tons. I can't even tell you how many in person, whether it's in Cambridge, in Boston, running around at these events, in New York City, in Puerto Rico, where I am now. I mean, it's really much easier, I think, even in a post-COVID world, to connect with a lot of these folks, enabled by a lot of the communication that Kate said, through WhatsApp, through these email groups, through all of these different events that the Extension School puts on and the alumni programs put on. You see a lot more people in person than I personally was expecting coming in. So that's been a really great surprise.
Awesome.
Yeah, Tom, I will say, if I am late sending out that monthly student newsletter, I hear from students like, when are the events? What's happening? Where's the recording for that webinar I missed? The students the students in this program bring that community energy. That is not forced. That's not top down. That is like all of you. And I think that's the magic and wonder of this program over perhaps some others, is that we just have a great group of human beings in these programs. You think 2,800 people, wow, how am I going to, no, you end up making 100 friends. So please believe us, that community energy is real. All right, Jacqueline, I think you had one last question, right?
Yes, we have one last question, and then we are going to just give you some contact information and let you go for your afternoon. So the last question, Lindy, is what is to come for this program? What is going to be things to look out for? What's the future of sustainability and global development in the next few years?
Well, that's a great question. I could talk for hours about that, but I will try to keep it brief. So one of the exciting things we're working on for the next academic year. So I'll preface that by saying our program has really grown over the last year. We've added 13 courses, especially in the Global Development Practice program, to start building that program out more fully. As I mentioned, it's very young, and so it hasn't been as substantial as our sustainability program. That will change, as you'll see in the course catalog for next year. And we've added I think we've added 14 new instructors who are going to be teaching things like law and policy courses that have been a gap in our curriculum before, who are teaching some more field courses, who are doing a little bit more on the community development and sustainable cities course side of things. So we're really trying to build some of those areas out that we haven't previously had a lot of variety in terms of the courses in. So that's exciting. The other thing that we're doing is launching micro certificates. And you'll hear, as a prospective student, you'll hear more about that in June, I believe. But I'll give you a little teaser. We're launching 3 micro certificates within these 2 programs this year. One will be on life cycle analysis, which will be a 2-course sequence that will really give you that skill set that a lot of employers are asking people to have right now. We're also launching one on regenerative agriculture. So you'll get to take some of those courses that Tom was talking about, and in a 2-course sequence that stacks towards a sustainable food certificate. And then we will also be offering either a little up in the air right now, but we'll be offering, I believe, a circular economics certificate, micro certificate, which will be that circular economics class plus the regenerative economics class that Tom was talking about. That has been a real favorite among our students because it really helps students to understand the full systems of corporate sustainability, product life cycles, and really how to apply that in their own work in their own worlds. And we've also been developing a sustainable finance certificate, which I think we will launch perhaps in the next year following. So those are some of the exciting areas that we're trying to grow the program into to really meet the challenge of climate change and some of the things that employers are really looking for and hiring for right now in the marketplace.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lindy. And so we are now just going to let you know about a few upcoming events. So if you liked what you heard today and want to continue the conversation, we invite you to attend some of these upcoming events. So as Lindy mentioned, each month we hold some events to have students who are currently in the program speak with each other, get to know each other. And so on May 17th, we are going to have a departmental open house and a documentary screening. And we will send you some more information in the Zoom link to this in the recording email that you'll get in about a week or so. Additionally, and as Lindy mentioned a few times, the Salata Institute is going to be holding a Climate Action Week between May 8th and 12th. And we have 2 events with the Extension School that are going to be happening then. If you want to click on that URL or visit the Salata Institute Climate Action Week, you can read a bit more about all the events that are happening then. And then finally, in June and July, we will be having a virtual open house experience where you can come learn how to register for courses, ask student financial services questions, and really just nail down all the answers you need to feel like you're starting off your journey successfully. And finally, we just want to thank you all so much for joining us here today and staying a few minutes over time. Again, our community is so passionate about what we do here, and we want you to join that community. So if you have any questions, feel free to email this email here. It's inquiry@extension.harvard.edu. And this is the phone number you can also call to speak to someone on our enrollment services team. And we ask you that if you would like to hear a little bit more about what's going on at Harvard Extension School, to follow us on our social media channels. Those will also be linked in the recording email, which will come out on April 25th, 2023. And again, we want to just thank you all so much for being here and joining us. Have a great rest of your day.